I remember it being a beautiful day, and I was spending most of my time working outside around the house. We had the windows open. It was just gorgeous. And, I remember we smelled propane. Let me just go inside and see. It was a faint smell. It wasn't anything strong from what I recall. I had no sense that there was a real danger. So I went inside the house and I went into the basement. I remember smelling an overwhelming smell of propane and feeling a little frightened by that. And it happened so fast. I remember looking up, hearing a noise like an ignition. And then I remember seeing a fireball on the opposite wall of the basement go from like left to right and just being very confused and then immediately sensing a ton of heat. And this happens in I'm guessing in milliseconds, but you feel like, okay, well, it'll subside, like sometimes when you get too close to an oven or a grill. And you just feel like, okay, well, it's hot, it'll go away. But it didn't, it got worse, and at one point I realized I was melting. So at that point, I obviously turned to run. And as fast as I could through the hallway, I remember, the funny thing is I don't recall hearing an explosion. And everybody outside said the explosion was so loud and they could feel it for miles. I never heard an explosion. I heard the initial ignition of a flame, like a grill. And I ran down the hall, and I remember behind me, in my peripheral vision, I saw a door explode. And I just kept going towards the screen door, the front door. First thing I did was run to the grass and roll. And then I settled down in the grass. I did hear my father-in-law say, "You're not on fire." So I settled there, and I realized the injuries were very, very severe. After I was still for a second, and it hit me, like, where's my son? And I remember how terrified I was. And I just yelled, "Where's my son? Where's my son? Where's Brody?" And I looked over to the left where I saw Megan on the grass away from the house, kneeling and holding my son. And then I was like, thank God, and then I put my head down and I just waited. I don't know at what point I heard sirens. I was told that at some point that an ambulance was gonna have to come pick me up to take me to the helicopter be airlifted. And then I remember inside the ER shouting everywhere, but there were people coming to me immediately. They started cutting off my clothes.
So we hopped in the car, and I made it 3/4 of the way to the hospital, and I called because I didn't really know where I was supposed to see him and go find out where he was, and they told me that I had to turn around because I couldn't come.
Because of COVID, no one was allowed in.
Which was really hard. I got a chance to talk to Chris for probably less than a minute when the hospital called me back and talked to some of the people in the ER. And, they handed him the phone and basically asked me if I could, approve having him, what I guess I didn't realize was put into a coma.
And intubated, yeah.
And I had to approve that, yeah. And so they said that his throat was closing up and that I needed to give approval immediately. I didn't realize it would be about 60 days until we got to talk to him or see him.
I found out later that I got some serious infections. My heart rate was off the charts, and they were worried that I might go into cardiac arrest. They had a hard time controlling that. Some other things I got sepsis. There were just a staph
What
infection.
I learned, is that
Lots of different things.
some things are almost inevitable.
I was so glad for a number of reasons that it happened to me, and that no one else besides our dogs were in that house. But also that I think if it was me who had to keep it together, take care of our son, make sure you protected him and, from what was going on, having to manage everyone else in the family, wondering what was happening. I cannot imagine that amount of stress, and I don't think I have the strength that you have to do that. I think I would have broken completely. For me, I think being in the coma was the easy part. You never forget the people who were there to help you through that. And Alicia meant so much to me, as did just about all the staff that I came into contact with. So I felt just a desire to want to give some of that back, to do that, to be there.
I remember it took you a little time before you felt ready to do that, but one of the things right off the bat I noticed, you're always wonderful about sharing and being open and honest and vulnerable, but also wanting to make sure you're checking in with other people and that you know, that they are part of the conversation, that you get a chance to connect with them.
That was something I was interested in doing, and I think it would be really meaningful after everything that happened and how so many people were there for me. I'm glad for the opportunity. It's given me a sense of purpose too, and a sense of fulfillment that I don't think I had before this. You know, really to heal and just to figure out my life going forward.
We've done the Christmas groups and things
Yes.
too, and it's nice to see like the full families
Right.
too, which is kind of cool, and seeing other people's kids. And,
So to be involved in
Yeah.
what gives you a sense of community with other people who are experiencing similar things is really comforting, you know, and it gives you strength and courage. It gives you a wider sense of family and support. That's, you know, invaluable. It's hard to quantify how much I've benefited from that. I feel so grateful, number one, just to be alive. And for sure there were things before this that I took for granted. Like, I didn't need this to figure out that I love my wife and my son. But now I know how crucial just being in their presence every single day is. And I definitely took that for granted at times before. The most important thing is when I was in the hospital, and I just so desperately wanted to get home to my family, and it wasn't even a decision. It was just like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get out of this bed. And so it wasn't even a decision. They asked me to do 10 reps of this or this exercise. I was gonna do 20. I was gonna do whatever it took to get out of there and get home. And I realized that how incredibly lucky I am to have a purpose. I don't think I would have wanted to get up out of that bed if I didn't have a reason to. So that's why she and my son, they're the heroes. Alicia is the hero. They gave me a reason to want to get up and live. And it's amazing to me that somebody cared enough to give me these beautiful people in my life